this interview is for the upcoming Women in Mining feature. Could you talk to me on some of the challenges that you, as a woman in the industry, have faced in the traditionally male-dominated industry? I mean, have you found that there's been a general uptick into including more women?
Thanks for the opportunity, once again. So in terms of the personal challenges that I've experienced as a woman in the industry, there's been so many, but I think today I'd just like to share three. Number one, it's the perception about women, looks and the physical strength. And number two, what I'd like to basically talk about is that generally the industry, although it does include women in different roles, but then there's still some areas that actually where men actually prefer to do men with men instead of women. So I've actually been exposed to such a scenario. And lastly, it's, we are women, we do fall pregnant. So I've also been exposed to a situation where I've had to actually let go of a job opportunity because I was pregnant. So in terms of the perception, right now we're talking, I have makeup and I have nails. Sometimes when we're in the industry, the expectation, particularly when you're wearing overalls, the expectation is that you don't necessarily need nails there or makeup. To quote a specific scenario, I've had one of my former colleagues say, "You guys have requested Christina to be the one coming onto this blood. What is that one going to do with her nails?" So obviously the perception by just now looking at how you have actually dressed up or you are as a lady is that, you're not going to be able to do what the job requires you because you have nails. That's a very bad misconception. And I remember I went to another site with where we had to now address a customer's issue. We had a discussion with the customer. We went to site to actually get it done. And then after we have done everything, the customer said, Christina, when I first saw you, I actually did not see how you were going to do this with all your nails. But today you have proven me wrong, So those are some of the challenges that usually happen. And in terms of preference of other men to actually deal directly with men, there was an instance earlier in my career where I needed to go to India and I did test work there. Then after I concluded the test work, I basically took the results to one of the MDs there. And then I said, "Okay, Mr. Customer, here's the outcome of the results. We see that the equipment is performing as it should." But then the customer said, "Thank you, madam, for the report and the results. But can you please call your male counterpart to come in and discuss business?" So meaning that now to take the matter forward, he needed to actually sit in front of another male counterpart. So those are some of the challenges that I've experienced personally. Lastly, about pregnancy. I remember, again, earlier in my career, I was looking for another opportunity and got interviewed. And I think the appointment only basically, or the proposal to appoint, only came in 3 months after the interview. And then I accepted the appointment, but at the time, I had not disclosed that, since then, I had fallen pregnant. And then when I was ready to have that discussion, and, the offer was actually taken back. And it's quite unfortunate that these things do happen or are still a challenge in our industry, but I think things have since gotten better. So in a nutshell, on that question, those are some of the experiences that I've had. But I think the industry needs to basically change and then let women show up the way they want to show up. So for an example, we know that for other positions, you get a woman candidate and a man candidate, and there will always be questions is this one going to be able to lift the bucket? Will they shovel? So I think we need to trust that the woman would have read through a job brief if they are basically interviewing for a certain position that may actually be perceived to be one that's suitable like for men. Just the women that they've actually done their work and then that they have actually applied their minds to say, irrespective of their physique, they can actually can do it.
Taking from your experiences, what suggestions would you have for companies to not put other women in those kinds of positions? I mean, obviously firing someone or rescinding an offer of employment just because they're pregnant, I mean, that's not on. I mean, that's just not, how things are supposed to do. So what would you suggest they can keep in mind?
My suggestion will be that, I think number one, we all have to now agree that we are different and we have to be deliberate. This thing is not just going to now happen, but I can also, being a manager myself, I can also put myself like in the shoes of the person that's hiring. Obviously, when you're hiring, you have a need, and then maybe there might be a demand that you actually need to address by having somebody immediately available to fill that position. And then maybe if that person needs to go on maternity leave for like a month or two, that might actually be a challenge, But then I think we have to be mindful that, not all women will actually fall pregnant every year. It's not like if you had somebody stay at home for a couple of months, then you have the same problem like again next year. So in that case, because the initial consideration will be around competencies, and then if the person is competent, give them an opportunity and let's make alternative plans. How about you hire a temp, like for that period where the person will not be there, So those are some of the considerations I think that we have to do to really, really be inclusive, like in our industry.
Have you found that more women have been joining the industry, or do you think that there's still that general sentiment, that the mining industry as a whole is for men only?
I think the narrative is changing, and I've seen a lot of women like joining in the industry. And I think with career expos, you still see that like young women are also interested like in going into the industry. But then in general, I think there's been like an increase like of women coming into the mining industry.
Does Multitech have any initiatives that look to progress and develop women in the industry? I mean, and if so, could you talk to me on some of these and maybe just give me a little bit more insight? Are you involved in any of these initiatives by any chance?
So I've been with Multitech for quite a long time. I think I did have a break for about a year and a half, and then I rejoined Multitech. But overall, I've been with Multitech over 15 years. If you look at like the different times combined together. So in the beginning, Multitech, particularly, I'm just going to like make a reference to senior like in roles. Like Multitech has always been male dominated, or if I may put it this way, that like some of the positions are very senior. They've always been occupied by men. But I think Multitech has actually made progress like in this area, and Multitech is really striving to be an inclusive and a diverse company. I think from the past 5 years, we've seen a lot of women taking up senior roles, like including myself, and then I can actually name quite a number of them. Like there's Sally Nkambule, who's a manager like leading up like a team of field services, and then ordinarily that position would have just been the one that's suitable for men. And there's S.T. Dujoy, there's also Beverly Slavet, who is like part of our Mencom. And I think in the recent years, there's been 2 women that are now part of Multitech Exco, like Vivian and Bulelwa, I think as Multitech, the commitment is quite visible, and because you are seeing now that there's a lot of change and inclusion of these women in different levels that were ordinarily not there.